In this daily drop, I'm going to talk about whether it makes sense to tackle the easy or the hard stuff first in production and post. So let's go. In today's episode, I want to talk a little bit about education. I want to talk a little bit about whether or not when you're in production and post, you should be tackling the easy stuff or the hard stuff first. And this really goes back to education. When you think about learning a new subject matter or a subject over time, it generally makes sense to take a laddered approach to that, a gradient approach, right? So you've got a ladder with these different rungs. And if you're learning a particular subject, let's say mathematics or something regarding history or English, whatever it's going to be, it makes a lot of sense to start here and work your way up those rungs on a gradient. Because if you start up here, you're almost definitely going to fall down anyway, and it's probably going to take longer to progress than it is to do it at a gradient. Now, that's true in your core education. Here in the States, we'll call it kindergarten through 12th grade or high school. And to a degree, it's the same in college or university, though the structure of that's a little bit different. My kids went to, and my son's still going to a school as a senior, where they have a self-study go at your own pace type of education. And they do get to choose what order they want to take their courses in. But generally, it's still from the viewpoint that you're doing it on the gradient, right? So you can still have the situation where you're putting off all the hard stuff till the end, but usually it's done on a gradient. In the real world, as you go through life and you become hopefully a lifelong learner, you will find that you start to build a certain knowledge base based on a particular subject matter. And as you progress in your knowledge, it's much easier for you to learn because you have that base. As long as that base is solid, that foundation is solid, and your ability to see something for the first time as a problem and then solve that problem is much, much faster than at the beginning of your career. And that's great because that allows you to do things like have a faster and more correct estimation of how long things are going to take. They take longer when you're younger, and then as you progress and you build that knowledge base, you can generally solve problems and do things at a much faster pace, which is fantastic. So then when you get to that point, some people will call it the 10,000 hours, whatever it's going to be, you can go into a situation related to your sphere of influence, understanding, career, what it is that you're doing, and you can tackle those things much more efficiently than when you were sort of in that beginning learning stage. So then the decision is, in production and in post, do I tackle the hard stuff first or the easy stuff first? And if I'm given that choice in both production and in post-production, I'm almost always choosing the hardest stuff first because it's not really a gradient approach situation at that point. It's how and when am I going to tackle the problems that are in front of me? So in production, for me, it's better to start with the harder stuff because that's going to take longer. There's more problem solving involved. And then look, there's always surprises, even with the easy stuff sometimes. This is no paint by numbers industry, but I have more predictability on that easy stuff and how long it's going to take. And if it's something new or a bigger problem, I want to tackle that first. The same is true for post-production. One for one, basically, for at least the projects that I do, whether I'm the editor or I'm hiring somebody and they're doing post, we try to tackle the problems that came from production first, as opposed to having those in our mind to try to solve later, trying to tell the story first and then solve the problems later. Solve the problems first. Put stuff in the timeline. Maybe you were rolling one day on multiple cameras and you notice when you ingested there's a dead pixel. Solve that problem first. There was an audio glitch or an audio problem. One of the mics wasn't routed properly and you need to use AI or something to fix that. Solve it first. There's something wrong, I don't know what, with the exposure, let's say, with one of your cameras or part of your production. Solve that first. That way you get that all out of the way. It's not on your mind, and then you can tackle the storytelling, the fun stuff, where you're jigsaw puzzling and you're doing that, but your mind isn't stuck on all of those technical issues. Speaking of technical issues, hopefully this recording into Ecamm Live over the Cam Link 4K goes off without a hitch. This is my third time doing this one. So fingers crossed, knock on wood. Don't forget to, and I'll see you on the next episode of The Daily Drop.